Working the night shift isn't for everyone. The silence, the emptiness, and the way shadows play tricks on your mind can be unsettling. But for me, it was an ideal situation. I was a night owl, and the idea of working in an empty office building, free from the usual daytime hustle and bustle, appealed to me. Besides, the pay was better, and I had plenty of time to work on my personal projects. I worked for a small marketing firm called Bright Ideas, which specialized in creating advertising campaigns for local businesses. Our team handled everything from digital marketing strategies to print ads and social media management. The company was located in an old 8-story building downtown that had once been a bustling business hub. Over the years, most of the offices had relocated to newer buildings, leaving only a handful of businesses occupying the space. Bright Ideas had rented out the entire 5th floor, where I worked alongside a small team of creatives and account managers during the day. My official title was Client Relations Specialist, but my role extended beyond just communicating with clients. I handled data entry, managed social media accounts, and assisted with various administrative tasks. The job was relatively straightforward, though it could be demanding when we had tight deadlines or last-minute changes from clients. The night shift was primarily for catching up on work left over from the day and handling any late-night client inquiries, as we occasionally worked with international clients in different time zones. On most nights, it was just me and the security guard, Joe, who patrolled the building. Joe was an older man in his 60s, with a warm smile and a friendly demeanor. He had a background in law enforcement, having served as a police officer for over 20 years before retiring and taking up the quieter life of a night security guard. Joe was a great storyteller, often regaling me with tales from his days on the force. His presence was comforting, a familiar face in the otherwise empty building. The building itself had an eerie charm. The floors above and below ours were mostly vacant, with only a few offices still occupied. The architecture was a mix of old and new, with original wooden paneling in some areas and modern renovations in others. The 5th floor was a blend of open office spaces and private cubicles, with large windows offering a view of the downtown skyline. The office was decorated with motivational posters and artwork, trying to create a lively atmosphere despite the quietude of the night. One particular night, I arrived at the office around 10 p.m. as usual. The building was quiet, the only sound being the hum of the air conditioning and the distant rumble of late-night traffic. I greeted Joe at the front desk, and we exchanged small talk before I headed up to the 5th floor. Joe always made a point of checking in on me throughout the night, making sure everything was safe. His routine patrols were a comforting presence, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone. As I walked through the dimly lit hallway, I flipped on the lights, illuminating the row of cubicles and my own small desk at the far end. The office felt peaceful, a stark contrast to the bustling environment during the day. I settled into my desk, opening my laptop and reviewing the tasks for the night. I had a few client emails to respond to and some social media posts to schedule for the next day's campaign. It was a typical workload, nothing out of the ordinary. The hours passed quickly as I got lost in the work. The quiet of the office was only interrupted by the occasional creak of the building settling or the distant hum of the elevator. Around midnight, I decided to take a break. I got up from my desk, stretched, and made my way to the break room. The break room was a small, cozy space with a fridge, a microwave, and a vending machine stocked with snacks. I grabbed a soda and a bag of chips, taking a moment to enjoy the view from the window. The city was quiet at this hour, the streets mostly empty, except for the occasional car passing by. I found the solitude relaxing, a perfect time to clear my mind. After a few minutes, I returned to my desk, ready to tackle the rest of my tasks. However, when I got back to my desk, I noticed something strange. My computer screen had gone black, not in the usual way it did when it went to sleep, but as if the power had been cut. Puzzled, I tried pressing the power button, but nothing happened. I checked the office lights. They were still on, which ruled out a complete power outage. Confused, I reached for my phone to call Joe, but before I could, I heard a faint noise coming from somewhere down the hall. It was a soft, shuffling sound like footsteps. My heart began to race. I knew Joe was on the first floor, so whoever was making that noise shouldn't have been there. The building was supposed to be locked down, with only authorized personnel allowed inside after hours. The sound grew louder, the footsteps slow and deliberate. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it a maintenance worker? Someone who had forgotten something? Or was it something more sinister? I cautiously walked to the door of my office and peered into the hallway. At the far end, barely visible in the dim lighting, was a figure. It was a man dressed in dark clothing, moving with a slow, deliberate pace. He seemed to be carrying something, but I couldn't make out what it was. My stomach dropped as I realized this was not normal. No one else was supposed to be in the building, especially not at this hour. I ducked back into my office, my mind racing. Should I confront him? Should I hide? My instinct told me to stay out of sight and assess the situation. There was a small storage closet in the corner of the office, filled with old files and office supplies. It wasn't an ideal hiding spot, but it was better than nothing. I slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind me, and tried to calm my breathing. From my hiding spot, I strained to hear what was happening. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by a faint metallic clinking noise. The man was getting nearer to my office. My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I peeked through a small crack in the closet door and saw the man enter my office. He was tall and thin, with a gaunt face and hollow eyes. In his hand, he held a large wrench, which he swung idly as he walked. He stopped in the middle of the room, his eyes scanning the desks and chairs. My mind raced with fear. What was he doing here? What did he want? The man began rummaging through the drawers of my desk, muttering to himself. His voice was low and angry, though I couldn't make out the words. He seemed frustrated, as if he were looking for something specific. Suddenly, the man stopped and turned his head toward the closet. My breath caught in my throat. Had he heard me? Seen me? He took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. I felt a wave of panic wash over me. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The man reached out and grabbed the closet door handle. He hesitated for a moment, then pulled it open. In a split second, our eyes met. His face twisted in surprise, then anger. Without thinking, I lunged forward, pushing the man with all my strength. He stumbled backward, dropping the wrench with a loud clang. I didn't wait to see his reaction. I bolted out of the office, sprinting down the hallway toward the stairwell. My only thought was to get away, to find Joe, and get help. Behind me, I heard the man shout, his voice echoing down the empty corridor. The sound of his footsteps pounding after me sent a surge of terror through my body. I reached the stairwell and flung the door open, rushing down the stairs 2 at a time. The stairwell was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the emergency light. I could hear the man's footsteps echoing in the stairwell, getting closer with each passing second. I burst into the lobby, gasping for breath. Joe was there, his eyes widening in alarm as he saw me. "What's wrong?" he asked, reaching for his radio. Before I could answer, the door to the stairwell slammed open, and the man emerged, a wild look in his eyes. He was holding a knife now, the blade glinting menacingly in the dim light. Joe reacted instantly. He drew his gun and shouted, "Drop the knife." The man's eyes flicked between Joe and me, a twisted smile spreading across his face. He took a step forward, and Joe fired a warning shot into the floor. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, and for a moment, everything went still. Then, with a furious yell, the man lunged at Joe, the knife raised high. There was another gunshot, and the man crumpled to the floor, the knife clattering away. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. Joe quickly radioed for backup, his voice steady despite the chaos. I watched in shock as the building was suddenly filled with flashing lights and the sound of sirens. Police officers swarmed the lobby, securing the area and taking statements. As the adrenaline began to wear off, I felt a wave of exhaustion and relief wash over me. The police quickly took control of the situation, handcuffing the man and ensuring he posed no further threat. I finally learned the man's identity. His name was Michael, a former employee of the building who had been fired months ago for violent behavior. He had a history of mental instability and had apparently been planning some kind of attack. The police found a bag near the building's back entrance containing rope, duct tape, and various tools. It was clear that Michael had come prepared for something terrible. He had disabled the power to the office floor, hoping to catch someone alone and vulnerable. The security footage, reviewed later, showed him entering the building through a back door he had forced open, then methodically making his way to the 5th floor. Watching the footage was surreal. It captured the moment he entered my office, the brief struggle in the closet, and the chase through the building. Seeing it all laid out in grainy black and white made it feel like a nightmare come to life. The police praised Joe for his quick response, noting that his actions likely saved my life. In the aftermath, the building's security was tightened significantly. New locks and cameras were installed, and the management reviewed safety protocols for late-night workers. Joe was hailed as a hero, his quick actions preventing what could have been a far worse outcome. As for me, I was given time off to recover from the ordeal, and I took full advantage of it. The thought of returning to the night shift, to that quiet, empty office, filled me with a lingering sense of dread. I eventually left the job at Bright Ideas, unable to shake the feeling of unease that had settled in. I found a new position with daytime hours, grateful for the normalcy and the presence of other people around me. The experience had left a mark, a constant reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. The night shift, once a time of peace and productivity, had become a source of anxiety and fear. Looking back, I'm grateful for Joe's bravery and the swift response of the police. It was a close call, a terrifying brush with danger that I'll never forget. The experience taught me a lot about the importance of security and vigilance, especially in seemingly safe environments. It also reinforced the value of having good people around, like Joe, who can act decisively in a crisis. Now I cherish the daylight and the simple comfort of being surrounded by others. The night shift may offer solitude, but it also comes with unseen risks, lurking in the shadows. I've learned to appreciate the noise, the activity, and the sense of safety that comes with the presence of others. And I've learned to always be aware, to never take my safety for granted, because sometimes danger can come out of nowhere, changing your life in an instant.